And welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. So excited to welcome our guest this morning, Natalie Lupi, who is, you may know her as the Executive Director of
MEORC, Mid-Eastern Ohio Regional Council of Government. A lot of times people think, what did you say, New York? No, it's not New York. It's MEORC.
MEORC. And you have been giving to this community for so many years. Just taking a look at this resume, I go, my goodness. Talk to me a little bit about your community service so far and what you've been doing in like part one of your life.
So part one of my life, I began in the field of developmental disabilities. So as a teacher, I started off my first year was in Carroll County. And in fact, I was thinking about this as my first job was in a condemned building until we were able to get state funding to build a new facility. And it was so exciting because I was so appreciative of that. And in my course of time being a teacher, I taught children with developmental disabilities. And then I taught children for the New Philly City Schools, behavior disabilities, severe behavior handicaps at that time is what they called them. So I taught the primary kids and mid-level kids and continued to fulfill those interests in that area. I went back and got my master's degree, postmaster's work, and became a principal. Was a principal, assistant superintendent in 3 different county boards of developmental disabilities. And I've been very interested. I taught at the university with special education. And my previous beginning years was in real estate. So I kind of had this whole variety to get myself through college.
Right.
So it's been an area of real interest to me. It's been a passion.
What do you think, Natalie, drew you to that particular area of education and to those kids?
So, I think about that and I think, well, how did I get started? I started my first work, it was into criminology. And wanted really to be an attorney. That was my first interest.
I see that.
So I started that, and then I had to do this internship where I had to work at a public defender's and investigations and so forth. And I thought, well, I'm not real sure that's really for me. Got connected at Kent State University through the Department of Special Education, focusing on juvenile justice, juvenile delinquency, and so forth. And decided that I would get my degrees in that area in special education. So pursued it from that area and got hooked up with a Dr. Bricker who no longer is around. And took an internship through Family and Children Center through Akron Hospital. So that was something that drew me very much in early intervention, and then proceeded to taking all of the different certifications that I possibly could get in order to be, well-rounded.
There's such a difference between those years of what we thought people were capable of doing and now. You have gotten to see so much change in this area, haven't you, as far as mainstreaming people and recognizing their abilities rather than their disabilities?
I think back with the original information that we had, because here's how I look at it, is what we know at the time, we do what we know best. And then as we progress and go through, and thank goodness, we can see that the progress and the abilities and the things that people bring to the table, who we don't even know, their capabilities. We always focused on disabilities. We were always thinking about how do we fix people. So that was, and like I said, that was my background and training of what I got. And no disrespect to any of the universities, but that's what we knew. The beauty of what we are today, it's person-centered focused. And I had the great opportunity when I was a superintendent to be able to be involved at the state level. So that when we saw House Bill 94 that changed the way that we looked at funding, being able to maximize our dollars at county boards so that people could have a life in the community and maximize the areas where they could pick where they wanted to live, not congregate people in settings, not put people in institutions. Thank goodness we have moved away from that. Now it's a person-centered world. In fact, I get excited about it because I'm a certified person-centered trainer. So I do the training to help people understand what's important to people, how to really focus in on that and really get at that.
Yeah. We love stories around here. Tell me about some lives you've seen changed.
So when I was a superintendent, we had an individual who came to us, and she had been very challenging. She had been in all different kinds of settings. We just couldn't figure out how to best serve her. So the cost for that individual was that she ended up having 2-on-1, 24 hours a day, in a setting that was very, very confining, very restricting. Mm-hmm. When we began to really understand what made her tick, what was important to her, what are the things that she enjoyed in her life, what's some of the things of in her family, and maybe some of the people that she would connect with, what's some of those rituals and routines. We took an individual who had been completely not having any control over her life, and not that anybody did anything wrong, but because of some of the behaviors and some of the things that was occurring, we weren't listening to her. She was using her behaviors to communicate to us, but until we understood that we need to look at this differently and not fixing people, but really empowering people, she now is working independently. She lives independently. She has a job. She's paying taxes, and she's just flourishing. That's just one example.
Oh, my goodness. And you can't even begin to
So how do you measure
calculate
that? Yeah.
Exactly.
You talk about return on investment.
My goodness. And that's just one. Multiply that times how many lives?
I mean, if we had the whole day, we could sit here and I could tell you all these stories.
Which would be awesome. You should come back every day. Let's just tell some more. What do you hope will be maybe your legacy from all these years? How long have you been working on this now?
Oh, boy. I was thinking about that today. I would say, it's been over, 37, 38 years in that field.
So you started when you were 1.
Yes. That's great. Thank you for the compliment.
Oh, sure, yeah. But what would you like, the takeaway for people to be? Let's say, Natalie Lupi, this is what she really left here. She left her stamp here.
I would really love to have people say, goodness gracious, what else was next? What else was next?
What would you like to see be next?
Because really, my value is that how can I take some of the information that I always say to people, don't do this, do this. Sharing some of the stuff that I went through. I was superintendent for 3 different counties. I was a principal. I was a teacher. I worked with early intervention. I did a lot of different things, and I'm thinking, I'd love to share that opportunity. And new people coming into the field, leadership, training. I enjoy that. Yeah. So I guess sort of passing on some of the stuff that worked, some of the stuff that didn't work. And I think about a professor. And in fact, I was telling my husband the other day, I think about this professor when I was in graduate school. Here I was coming in, no experience, trying to get my certifications to be an administrator and these types of things. And what I really loved about this guy, sure, we had our training, but he was bringing in these stories as a superintendent, as a principal. And those things stuck with me. So when I'm reading my information and I'm doing the things that I need to do, I could make the connection of the dots. I could connect it. That's what I hope to do, whether it be training, whether it be mentoring. I've thought about doing some business coaching, stuff like that, that I would think how I could pass on some of the stuff that worked.
We are getting into a brand new school year. There are some people just getting out of college and they're just stepping into the classroom for the very first time.
Yes.
What would you say to them?
I would say to them to really get to know your students. Try to get comfortable in your own skin. Try to think about the skill set that you bring and think about all those children and think about what they bring and how you collaborate with these kids. Take them where they are. Try not to fit kids into a peg. Try to look at their skills, look at what they bring, and excite them. Be innovative. Be creative, because you could get those children to just blossom. And I think that's a responsibility of a good teacher, is to really know what makes that little kid tick, or that high school kid. Doesn't matter who it is.
Right.
And bringing them forward in that way. Make every day so exciting they want to come in and see you.
You realize that everything you just said there goes against what they've just been taught in college.
I know. I know that. And it's no fault of theirs, because they're trying to just get through, because they want to get that. They need to complete that foundations of whatever requirements are, but they're missing the boat on some of the education part with helping teachers become teachers, administrators become administrators. There's a piece of it that gets into this innovation.
What's the most important kind of professional development a teacher can give themselves to make themselves be that person you're talking about?
I think it's always being continuous learner. To me, I think when you stop learning, then you decline. I teach this course I put together, which is a blended of trauma-informed care, the good life, and person-centered thinking. And I kind of did this because we were contracted for, and I did this was a 12-day session to helping individuals being able to be supported. And one of the things is that I taught was that it's in any kind of a business cycle, it's anything with personal, is that if you are continuously growing, reevaluating self-assessment, and continuous learning, okay? You got to continuously learn because it's in anything. If not, you're going to decline. And it's like in any organization. If you're not reinventing yourself, then, it's not going to be a positive thing. So I would say teachers always continuously self-assess. What's the next thing?
Yeah.
How can I improve myself? And really, for employee development, what is it you want to see? What really makes you shine? Because when you find your passion, then you will really excel. That's what I've seen too with people who've worked with me, some of my employees, and even myself.
There's somebody who's listening right now, and they're thinking, okay, I really ought to do this. What would be step one?
I think step one really is to try to determine some things of what's your long-term goals. I mean, what do you really see yourself? And I look at this almost like as a map. And I think about where do you see yourself 5, 10, and just visualize it. So unless you visualize it, you'll never get it. And then you have to have small incremental steps. You have to think about, okay, what are some of the things that I have to do in order to get there? There's going to be obstacles. There's going to be things that come in the way. But then with every obstacle, there's an opportunity. I always say that. I mean, I've run into so many roadblocks in my days. And I think about it, well, you know what? That really was an opportunity. It got disguised as some big trouble. But it was an opportunity.
What an awesome way to look at everything. Okay, this is like one of the most inspiring conversations I've ever had. There are some people who do not have contact. Why for whatever reason, their path has not crossed someone with special needs. And then they do, and they're not quite sure how to behave, how to talk to this person, how to interact.
Right.
Tell that person, what do we do? How do we engage someone with special needs and get to know that person as that person?
Think about yourself. How would you want someone to communicate with you? Get to know that person. Because we often say, oh, that person has to be special. Here's what they have to be. You have to be thinking about the person. It has to be surrounded about that individual. Who's in their life? What's some of the things that they find that's their rituals and routines, okay? Just like myself, I'm a morning person, all right? I have to have my coffee. I get up at a certain time. I've got to be engaging some things. If someone said to me, hey, Natalie, you cannot get involved in anything until after 9 o'clock in the morning, that would just like send me over the edge. The same thing with people with disabilities is to find out where they're at. Think about knowing them. Get to know them. Get to understand them. Like them, see their value, see their abilities. Don't look at the disabilities because we all have disabilities. We all have issues, right?
Yeah, every one of us learns differently.
Absolutely.
We all have areas where yes, exactly. We all have our disabilities and we all have our abilities.
Exactly. Same thing. It's the same thing.
It truly is. All right. Well, I knew our time was going to be flying by. You said, where does that person want to be in 5 to 10 years? Where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years?
Well, I have no plan to retire anywhere soon. I look at life as an evolution. I look at where can I use my skill set. I always think that, God gave me abilities. I think he had a purpose for me to do. And I think that so far it's been working out pretty good.
I would say.
And I just continue to think, what's the next venue? I mean, obviously, with the situation of my uncle passing away in 2017. I lived with Jim, my mom and I lived with the family for all my life as a little girl. And, he wanted us to continue on with the Tuscarawas Broadcasting Company. My cousin and I, Paul Fanti, we are co-owners of The Light and also WBTC, Big Hits. And so we continue to look at opportunities, how we evolve our business in order to be sustainable. I mean, think about it. I mean, the whole world in broadcasting has completely changed. No different than anything else.
Right.
So we're looking at that. We're looking how we evolve, how we sustain it, what's those operations and opportunities. And I'm trying to, get myself skilled up in understanding as much as I can. And I've been really beating the pavements and trying to straddle these two worlds.
A sponge. I would say you've been a sponge. Looking at the clock, we do need to take a short break. We're visiting with Natalie Lupi. Going to be talking to her more about this new chapter in her life after these words. You're listening to Our Community.